Welcome to Pashua's Moment with Pastor Charles Kiyaga.
Praise the Lord, brethren. We are back again on our program, the Pashua's Moment, which is a program that reminds us and teaches us on the ways to draw close to God and to seek God. And as always, I'm your servant and standing on this mountain, the mountain of God seekers, which is dedicated to nothing else but to the cause of people finding time to go and be alone with God. And this is where your uniqueness will be born. This is where you'll be remolded into the person that you were created to be. Where I encourage you to come as often as you can. Open 24/7 with everything that you need. The serenity and the open heavens that will help you to connect with your source. On this very site, we are going to be having a camp, a prayer and fasting camp from the 28th to the 30th of December, which is next week. I encourage you to come and join us in the prayer and fasting camp that we are going to have here. Last week I talked about the spiritual benefits of fasting. This week I'm talking about the health benefits of fasting, so that you don't see it as a bother, you don't see it as a burden when we tell you to come and fast, so that you can see the benefits, the spiritual as well as the health benefits, to have a very good reason and cause for you to choose to come and join us in the prayer and fasting camp that we are going to have here. Yesterday, I talked about the different deities that we have and the food sources that we get from the different food bases. And I decided to concentrate on carbohydrates, where we pick energy. And we said whenever we eat food, it is metabolized into the basic unit, which is a molecule of glucose. And that molecule is a ready source of energy. When it is injected into the cells turn it into ATP. ATP is the energy that moves the metabolic activities within the cell. But this glucose generates relatively less energy because it has one energy bond. So one molecule of glucose, the energy it produces would be less than the energy that comes from a glucose that has been turned into another form of carbohydrate for storage. And I read to you about different forms of carbohydrates, which are the stored sources of energy that the body keeps. Whenever you eat food and you generate glucose, the body uses the glucose for what you need at the moment, and then whatever is not used, it pushes it into the tissues. When the tissues have got enough, it pushes it into another form, which are fats, and it stores it as fats. Okay? But these fats are relatively stable. That's why it is stored that way. Glucose in its form is very unstable in blood. It is like having petrol in your house. That petrol can burn, cause a fire to burn you and the entire house, because it is very unstable. It fumes and creates very volatile fumes that can catch fire anytime. This is what glucose is. So the body has a mechanism. God created a mechanism that pulls the glucose immediately it comes into blood. It pulls it away from blood into the cells and into the tissues, and eventually it can be transformed into those stored sources. And what does this? It's a hormone called insulin. Insulin comes into your blood and it draws the glucose away, so that the instability of glucose in the blood is minimized. And then when it goes into your cells and your muscles and your tissues and it is gone into storage, now you are stable. Okay? And you use that glucose that is there for that time, and eventually, if it's not enough, what usually happens is you feel hungry again to eat. If especially you tell your body to use glucose from your immediate food that you eat. That's why you always feel hungry and you want to eat and eat and eat so that you can generate glucose coming into your blood all the time. And whenever it comes, insulin has to come to draw it away. So the more this is done and insulin is always coming into the blood, eventually you get what we call insulin intolerance. The cells on which insulin holds to be able to pull the glucose out of blood into the cells, usually they become insensitive to insulin. And then you get what we get, insulin intolerance. So when you get insulin intolerance, it means that the glucose will not be drawn away from blood. And then it becomes that is what we call diabetes. When your insulin is no longer able to pull the glucose away out of your blood and glucose is hanging in the blood, we call it diabetes. And diabetes is a very debilitating disease. You become weak because you don't have enough energy in your cells for your body functions. But then the glucose itself is a ready source of energy for anything. So it becomes a source for the organisms that cause lots of diseases to thrive within your blood and your body. So it is a very debilitating disease, and it causes a lot of havoc. Many of you know about diabetes. But diabetes comes because of the consistent flow of glucose in your blood, which has to be extracted all the time, and eventually, if the mechanism starts failing or faulting, you get what we call diabetes. There are two types of diabetes. Type 1, which is a genetic one. It is usually less than 5%, where you have a genetic limitation that you do not have enough insulin to effectively pull out your blood from glucose from your blood. Less than 5%. But most of the other the other diabetes is type 2, which is caused out of our feeding or eating styles, okay? Which is eating all the time and glucose is always in the blood. So we'll begin from there tomorrow to see the dangers of this type of feeding. And when you fast, how does it help? Help you so that you become more healthy and more stable. God bless you. We'll begin from tomorrow.
Eyo yebadde Pursuers Moment ng'ekutusiddwako essomero lya Pursuers Junior School erisangibwa mu Butambala ku kkubo lya Mpigi Gombe. Kati wulira enkizo eriwo singa otwala omwana wo ku Pursuers Junior School. Interviews za bwereere. Essomero liyimiridde ku musingi ogutya Katonda ate ng'omwana agonjulwa abakugu. Tutumbula ebitone eby'enjawulo mu mwana. Tulina amazzi amayonjo ku ssomero ate ng'omwana bw'asomera ne weyeebaka abanga mukungu. Endya y'abayizi nnungi byansusso anti emmere tugirimira nga ne faamu y'ente weeri ku ssomero. Tulina emmotoka ezitambuza abaana. Pursuers Junior School e Butambala tusomesa abaana okuva mu baby class okutuuka ku kibiina ekyomusanvu mu Dene boarding. Okumanya ebisingawo 0772 41 98 4 ne 0702 36 41 64. Pursuers Junior School Butambala, in pursuit of knowledge.